Yeah, you're welcome. It's Destination Newry. It's good to see you again. Here we are. We have two very special guests with us this morning on the morning show. Kate Mara, all the way from Germany, and David Drovics. And David's here. Musical people, filmmaker is Kate. I suppose a broad term for you, a broad description of you. You're people with a social conscience, and you give expression to it in your filmmaking and indeed in your music.
Yeah, good summary, for sure.
I wasn't sure I was going to get that summary done. But tell me of your provenance. Where have you come from and what's it all about? You're an American, you're from New York. What motivates you? Why are you doing what you do?
Well, I discovered fairly early on that telling stories through music is a great way to tell stories about what's happening in the world today and what's happened in the world in the past. And I think at least your Irish audience would be well familiar with that phenomenon.
I think so.
Yeah.
One of the YouTube of your films, London's Burning, that refers to the time of the riots in London.
Yeah.
And you created music to deal with that.
Yeah, I wrote a song about the riots, and recently my friend Chris Chandler from California made a music video for the song, and I think it's especially relevant right now because just last week the police who in my humble opinion executed Mark Duggan in the streets of London was found not guilty of any wrongdoing.
Yeah, let's hear that one. It's London's Burning. Andrew.
Another man, they have that kind of knack, and it may not be coincidental that he was black. He was sitting in his car, they say he might have had a gun. What we know for sure is he had 5 kids, daughters and sons. Now he can't have a family, he'll never see his friends. His neighbors understand what kind of message this sends. Some life is worth less, some life is worth more. You don't have to be a mathematician to know the score. Some people get shot just for being who they are. Some people play with iPads, take vacations, drive in fancy cars. Some people go to universities, some people do not. It depends on where you were born and how much money you got. The government cuts their spending, widening the divide, then reacts with disbelief when they face the rising tide of anger at the cuts of the futures that they rob. With each day so many have to live without a job. Now the flames are getting hotter, they keep coming to your town. London is burning down. Cameron went on TV in his suit and tie. If the riots asked the question, then this was his reply. We'll arrest these hooligans, these people without shame. They are only criminals, and it's only criminals to blame. Morals have decayed among the peasants' ranks, so let us lock them up while we bail out the banks. When that's the way they look at it, it's not very hard to watch things fall apart in this house of cards. Now the flames are getting hotter, they keep coming to your town. London is burning down. Clueless people whine. These kids have too much freedom, and all this is just a sign that we need more policemen to teach them some respect. Well, if that's your line, then I know just what you can expect. The class will be repeated until the lesson has been learned. All you need is some injustice to make your cities burn. All you need is the perception, whether or not it's true, that most of us will never live the way you do. Now the flames are getting hotter, maybe coming to your town. London is burning down.
Okay, David, what was all that about? Yeah, the song Meaningful, relating to the troubles in London. Were you there yourself? You took it all in, you investigated, and the song was born.
I was actually in an airport in Texas looking at CNN on a TV screen when the riots kicked off in London, and I was on my way to Europe, to Norway. So I missed the actual riots, but I caught the immediate aftermath of them. I think I got to London maybe 2 or 3 weeks afterwards and saw the burnt buildings and stuff that hadn't been cleaned up yet.
Did it come as a surprise to you that in the 21st century you would be having something like this to deal with, and that you would be required in civilized London to write about such things?
Yeah, not in the least, because, especially with the current government, but also really not, also previous governments in recent decades, the division of wealth keeps on getting worse in England as in so many other countries, and it doesn't take long to spend time in England to realize that racism is also alive and well. And you can see the way that police treat people in the black neighborhoods, and it's it's not surprising that this kind of thing could kick off with an incident like a public execution of it wasn't.
That was last week. That was
when
the
he
result
was found,
of the
not guilty.
that was the inquest result of Mark Duggan.
Yeah,
indeed.
Of the cop.
What motivates you? What makes you care about these things?
I don't know. I guess from an early age I was bullied by other kids, I think. So probably that had something to do with identifying with the oppressed. I don't know what did it to me. I grew up in a prosperous neighborhood in the suburbs of New York, so it wasn't like I experienced hardship myself or anything. But I don't know. I don't know what did it to me, really.
Got to ask you, are you an anarchist?
I usually prefer to embrace the term libertarian socialist, just because it confuses people.
Okay. We'll run with that one. We'll run with that. Kate, you're from Germany. Kate Mara. I was saying to you, the name Mara is almost Irish, for goodness sake. But you're a filmmaker.
Yeah, I make films and other video projects, mostly for online release, because it's a great way to reach wider audiences. Of
course. You were in Greece, and Into the Fire is let's just look at the trailer for Into the Fire, but put a line of description on it for me first of all. You were there, you met young refugees. Tell me about that.
Well, the tagline of the film is the hidden victims of austerity. I live in London, and I work with the independent production team there. We cover all kinds of social issues on the bigger scale. And we went to Greece to cover austerity in early 2012. But at the time, everyone was talking about the bailouts, about the banks, about Greece getting money. No one was really talking about what it's like for common people to live in this austerity, to live with these cuts. And we originally covered 7 stories, I think. Workers who hadn't been paid for 9 months, hospitals who went on strike, a whole range of issues. And we also met a group of young refugees, boys 8 to 17 years old, who were living in a hostel coming from all over the world. And they were telling us about being served rotten food, about being attacked on the streets, having people set dogs on them. And we decided we had to go back and take a closer look at the issue.
And the closer look became Into the Fire.
Yes.
And we have the trailer of it now.
At least last year we have a humanitarian crisis because of the economic crisis.
I really want to be any country which better than this.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
You come in Greece, you will know Greece.
كل ده دم بيسقط كله دم مالوش
Some of
وش.
them said you will turn you to soap.
The boy wanted to die.
Together with the fascists, with policemen.
We are trapped in like a prison. It's a prison. take video, delete the video.
Right, yeah, we haven't started yet. It's okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that kind of sums it up at the end, the confrontation there. What are you doing? Who are you? You'll not show this. Did you come across a lot of that when you were making the film?
Police repeatedly tried to stop us from filming. That instant in the very end was we were walking through Omonia, a neighborhood in Athens with a high migrant population, and we saw on the street corner the police rounding up anyone who looked like a foreigner, you have to say. Anyone with the wrong skin color, essentially. So those controls very much look racist in nature to us. And we got out the cameras and started filming, and instantly the police came over, told us we weren't allowed to film.
Oh.
And then also told us to delete anything we had already filmed, which is illegal in Greece.
Well, this is we're talking about the seat of civilization, the heart of democracy.
And it wasn't the only instance where police seriously tried to intervene and stop us from documenting what was happening.
You saw racism rampant in Greece.
Yeah, sadly, we did. On various levels. I mean, the most obvious one being Golden Dawn. You can say neo-Nazi or fascist party. There was a crackdown in late September where they did raids. The police finally did raids in their houses, and they had all kinds of Hitler pictures up and Nazi paraphernalia, amongst other things. So they essentially have hit squads out on the streets hunting people, hunting anyone with the wrong skin color. And they've committed several murders, they've killed several people.
This is Golden Dawn we're talking
Golden
about,
Dawn, yes.
the party. Yeah.
But there's also amongst the population quite a bit of racism amongst sympathizers of Golden Dawn. So just being on the streets feels unsafe to people. It's not all Greek people. The majority of Greek people are very good people, and there's a lot of people who try to help, which we also try to cover in the film, who try to support the refugees and immigrants. But also very frightening is the level of racism and persecution from stateside, from the government and the police. Just recently, the chief of police, I think, spoke of the undocumented refugees, migrants coming into the country as all being criminals coming to steal, and then said they wanted to extend detention periods in order to make life unbearable for them, which from a chief of police is just incredible. We have accounts of people being beaten up by police. Just recently, a few weeks ago, I had word from Greece that people don't dare go on the streets anymore. There has been a crackdown on Golden Dawn now, and that has let up a little bit, but at the same time, the danger that people are under from the side of police has increased, and they don't even dare leave their houses.
Okay. Right, David, we've heard you sing on tape. Now hear you sing perhaps in reality. We have you live in studio.
Sure
it's
thing.
too great an opportunity to let go.
Sure thing.
So
Happy.
please, will
Yeah.
you do something for us and tell us the nature of the song you're going to do?
Well, you had mentioned Rachel Corrie. And,
Yes, the English girl who died in Gaza.
Yeah, she was from Olympia, Washington, actually.
She's not.
American
I thought she
girl,
went to school in England. No, that was my mistake.
No, she went to school at, as far as I know. I mean, I know.
Oh no, you're right. Yeah.
Evergreen State College in Olympia, where I also went to school for a very brief period.
Yeah.
And
school couldn't hold you.
yeah,
I'd say.
no,
you had wider vision.
I didn't have enough time to play music, and I realized,
Tell them first of all about Rachel.
Rachel was 23 years old and was involved with the International Solidarity Movement, ISM, a group that was started by a couple of folks a guy from the New York area and a Palestinian woman. They started this group to basically send volunteers over to the occupied territories in Palestine to try to help out there, to try to prevent the military from demolishing homes, for one thing. And Rachel was trying to prevent the demolition of the home of a doctor in the town of Rafah in Gaza Strip when she was killed by a bulldozer made in the U.S. When she sat down in the dirt in front of your machine, a lovely woman dressed in orange, you in military green. If you'd met her in Jerusalem, you might have asked her on a date. But here you were in Gaza, rolling towards the gate. As your foot went to the floor, did you recall her eyes? Did her gaze remind you that you'd become what you despise? As you rolled on towards this woman and ignored all shouts to stop, did you feel a shred of doubt as you watched her body drop? As your caterpillar tracks upon her body pressed with 60 tons of deadly force, crushed the bones within her chest, could you feel the contours of her face as you took her life away? Did you serve your country well on that cool spring day? When you went back across the green line, back to the open shore, did you think this was another day in a dirty war? When you looked out on the water, did you feel an empty void? Or was it just one more life you've taken, one more home destroyed? One more home destroyed.
David, my observation is there's an anger coming from the guitar. Are you angry in the cause of righteousness and the cause of peace?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Very angry, yeah. And, you know, all the other emotions, too. I mean, there's so much to feel in relation to everything that goes on in the world, so much to be angry about in terms of what, you know, organizations like my government and the Israeli government are doing to human beings, but also, of course, so many other feelings. I mean, such you know, it's so beautiful too to see what people like Rachel Corrie and so many others do in defense of their fellow human beings, even people that they've never met and have nothing to do with, other than the fact that they share the same human blood.
Is it hard to carry that anger on one set of shoulders? Does it bow you down? Does it cripple you?
As long as you write songs and sing about it, then you know,
you're
it's
happy with
therapeutic.
That. Yeah,
Then, yeah. But if you were just stewing on it and not expressing the feelings in any way and not doing anything about it, then I think it could really eat you up. And I think it does that to a lot of people.
How long have you been doing what you do?
I started playing music as a child, and started writing songs in maybe, I guess, the late 80s.
And was there a moment when the songwriting tripped over into the protest songs that you are famous for now?
I actually got kind of politically involved as a kid, which was largely inspired by the meltdown at 3 Mile Island nuclear reactor in Pennsylvania, which was directly affecting New York. And it scared me, and you know, because we couldn't drink the milk, and so I was wondering why can't we drink the milk? Because it's radioactive. Well, what's that? You know, well, you could get cancer, and well, I didn't want to get cancer. And so that got me kind of involved with the anti-nuke movement, which was happening in a pretty big way in the late 70s, early 80s when I was a kid. So then I got into songwriting many years later as a teenager. So I was already had a sort of political orientation.
What? delve into your privacy, but I mean, how do you earn a living? Do you earn it from the songs?
Yeah, I actually do. It's mostly about 95% of my gigs are organized by activist types, people involved with anti-war or pro-Palestine or environmental or labor groups around North America and Europe primarily.
I sense when I say how do you live, I sense you don't need a lot in order to live.
No, I'm happy with my old car and small apartment, and I actually, half of the money, I actually do taxes these days, and so I'm actually keeping track of this stuff, which I didn't used to do. But
that in itself is a protest, maybe.
Right, yeah. But half of my earnings go into paying for plane tickets and hotels and rental cars and stuff. So it's a fairly marginal way to make a living, but it works out as long as I do at least 120 gigs a year, which I want to do anyway. So
yeah. How old are you now?
46.
Wow, you're a young man. I'm 70 now, so you have a long way to go. But are you as you grow older, energy levels, 120 gigs a year, for goodness sake, that's 2 a week, or more.
I know so many people who hit around my age or a little older, and they start slowing down, and so that hasn't really hit me yet.
But you're a driven man. You have a reason for doing it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Where is God in all of these things? Because in America, the land of great religiosity and fervor, you have kicked it all into touch in a sense.
Yeah,
or do you still have you a belief in a God?
Not really. It's just, for me, it's about humanity and the planet, and I guess you could call me a secular humanist.
Secular humanist. I like that. I like that. And now we're having the opportunity, I see, to take ourselves off to Mars and start the awfulness all over again.
Oh, I know, it's terrible. I mean, it seems like we should sort things out here before we start messing up Mars.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Kate, in your work, when did it start for you? When did the protest start? When were you driven to take your first step of saying stop?
Well, I recently found some old scanned-in pictures of my family, and I believe the first protest I was at, I was about 3 years old.
Mom and Dad had you there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what for other people is going to church, for me was peace marches around Easter or 1st of May demonstrations. So I've really grown into it. And the first time I personally got involved was, I must have been 13 or 14. And we supported a family of gypsies from Macedonia and Yugoslavia at the time where the war was on. Mm-hmm. So they were threatened by deportation, and we met the kids, some of whom were younger than us, and they told us about having had rocks thrown at their heads for racist reasons by other kids where they came from. And yeah, that...
At your mother's knee, you learned, at your mum's knee, you learned it. At the kitchen table, that's where it was.
In a way, yes.
That's indeed. Have you another tune for me, sir?
Oh, sure. Let's see. How about I got related to the refugee. I mean, me and Kate have done a few. We're doing a bunch of gigs around Ireland together, where she's showing the film and I'm singing, and I think it kind of works because I write a lot of songs about refugees.
Have you a gig coming in this area?
On Saturday in Belfast at davidrovics.com they can see where all the gigs are happening. Belfast, Dublin, Cork, and Waterford.
You love Cork. Have you been there?
I love Cork. It's beautiful.
It's a great city, isn't it? Yeah, you could live there.
Beautiful.
With
and
ease.
Such a great music scene too.
Yeah. Cork is good.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in Australia a few months ago, and they were having an election, and it was the campaign was largely around the refugees. I mean, that was the big issue, and you had the more sort of progressive of the two parties that you could say theoretically that was advocating for putting all the refugees in detention centers on islands far away from Australia and keeping there indefinitely until they voluntarily decide to go back to the war zones from which they are trying to escape. And then the less progressive of the two parties, the one that won, their policy was they were running on a platform of turn the boats back.
Turn the boats back.
So the idea, which has not been yet implemented, I think, but the idea is the Australian Navy should intercept boats of refugees from places like Syria and Sri Lanka and basically tow them back to the war zones, which is completely illegal.
Isn't it the case, really, if you, it came to me just as you were speaking about refugees, the majority world today is the world of refugees and suffering.
I mean, what we talk about as immigration is it's a bit of a misnomer, you know, because really what we're talking about in the vast majority of cases is refugees. You know, when you talk about who is it who's trying to come to Europe, you know, supposedly to, you know, all the nonsense propagandas about taking advantage of European social welfare and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is that they're trying to get to Europe because they're escaping war zones. You know, they're coming from places like Syria and Palestine and you know, Afghanistan. You know, that's where in the United States, the third biggest group of so-called immigrants from Latin America is from one of the smallest countries in the world, El Salvador. You know, and if they were immigrants seeking a better life, then why aren't there a lot more Brazilians and, you know, other people from big countries in South America? The third biggest group after Puerto Ricans and Mexicans is people from El Salvador. You know, they're escaping war and persecution.
Absolutely.
As did my grandparents.
Hey,
my father's mother's parents came here on a boat. They came from a land of kings and queens, but on the wrong side of the moat. My father's parents came here on one too. They didn't want to leave Austria, but it was a thing for Jews to do. I don't know your story, but I'll bet it's more or less the same. What kind of war or famine was on when your family came before their ship arrived? Did your folks come here to discover and explore, or were they refugees running from the war? Did they cross the freezing mountains to make it to the sea, all the while wishing that they never had to flee? Were they marched across the jungles with chains around their feet, nearly dying of exhaustion in the desert heat before their ship arrived? Did they make a life here, or were they kidnapped and detained, held for years in limbo as their optimism waned? Were they turned down for asylum and told they shouldn't lie, then sent off to be tortured, sent back home to die? Did they get to move here, create their lives anew, or are they held on Christmas Island, asking what on earth they can do before their ship arrives? Before their ship arrives.
do you have a sense, fantastic, it's lovely, do you have a sense of your Austrian history still?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean,
Did mum and dad are still alive, are they?
Yeah, mom and dad. It was my great grandparents.
Who came, yeah.
My
But did mum and dad cultivate it in your house?
yeah,
Kept it going, kept it alive?
My grandma did, especially.
Your grandma
yeah,
especially, yeah.
And,
She's still with you?
no, she's
gone,
died
she's
some
gone.
years ago at 93. Yeah,
Wow, she's good. Longevity.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
And what was the message? What for you as a boy in New York when you begun to take note of these things? What for you was the Austria that they had fled?
Well, it was, I mean, the message, I think, it seems to me that in the Jewish community that I grew up in a very mixed community, but in the Jewish community in New York, it seems to me that there's two basic takes on the whole history, and the one that I very much identified was this should never happen to anybody, and we have to we have to live in a way that attempts to prevent this kind of persecution from happening to anybody anywhere, you know. And then there are those whose take from the whole thing was more like this should never happen again to Jews, and who cares about anybody else? You know, that's I think a lot of the folks who have that kind of attitude went and colonized Israel.
Yeah,
but, you know,
There is a bit of that, you know. We were done badly once, we'll never be caught again, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you know, as you say, the second alternative there.
Yeah, and if we have to drive hundreds of thousands of Palestinians off of their land in order to prevent us from being persecuted, then you know, who cares?
Have you, David? Have you a strategy here? Are you leaving it to the wisdom of the song and the words? You know, you're outside the tent throwing the rocks in a sense, the musical rocks.
Yeah.
That you know, the man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still, if you like. How are you going?
Yeah.
Is it too big a task in your head to try and change it, and do you just leave that?
I think music, I mean, what attracts me so much to songs is that, and I've noticed from personal experience that music can reach people where other forms of communication will just, you know, make the alarm bells go up and make people not listen. But songs can just get under their skin, and actually it's recently been proven by scientists studying the effect of music on the brain that words when sung go straight to the emotional center of the brain. So you know, that's, and I could have told them that, you know,
yes,
but it's nice that it's been proven now, because it really it has a powerful impact on people.
So where does the road take you? You're going to keep doing this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Nothing else for you?
No, I love traveling and playing music, and so it's a great way to make a living, and I think it has some kind of an impact, and so I really like feeling like I'm having some kind of an impact.
Yeah. And is David Drovics at peace with himself?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And where does that peace come from? Certainly not coming from all that impinges on you. Where does your peace come from?
Knowing that I'm doing something to try to make a difference, you know, and also that it's very cathartic to play music, you know. It tends to induce.
But I love that concept. You know, peace comes from knowing that you're trying to make a difference.
Yeah.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah, you can't measure how much of a difference you're making generally, you know, but it's not so concrete like that, but you can try. And
you know the starfish story, of course.
What's that?
When the starfish was washed up on the beach, there were hundreds of them, and the man lifted the starfish to bring it out, and he walked out to put it back in again. And the boy said, "Why are you bothering with that? There's hundreds of them. It makes no difference." He said, "But it makes a difference to the fellow I've just put back into the water again."
Yeah,
you know.
that's good.
How did you two meet? What was the story?
London, in the sort of activist community in London, I guess, right? We met in Copenhagen. Yeah,
hey.
Right. How could I forget? Yeah, the COP15 at the.
COP15 was a big climate summit where, again, there weren't any decisions actually made to, you know, save the climate. And I was working at a media center of independent journalists, and I think you were going to play a benefit for us.
Yeah.
Which never happened because the police raided the building and arrested a lot of bicycles.
Yep.
So we stood in the ice rain for 2 hours watching the police load bicycles onto a truck.
The nearest I've got to any of that was the World Food Congress in The Hague, back when England won the World Cup. That's how I remember it. Not sure
66.
66. I was in The Hague. Myself and a colleague, we laid down in front of the Dutch royal family in order to protest about world poverty, because we were shouting then for 1% of GMP. My God, that was in 66. We're now in 2014, and we still don't have 1% of GMP.
It could make an incredible difference if we did.
Ah, yeah, it'd be, you know, it's. But I mean, up to now in the program, we've been talking to you about the human elements. We've been talking to you about the man-made disasters, and you simply, Kate, alluded a moment ago to the natural disaster that is, and it's man-made. It's man-influenced. The weather. That's another chapter of the protest. Does it ever feel too much for you?
It does, and actually, just what you asked David a minute ago, I think I'm much less at peace, just for the plain reason, for example, having been to Greece, I spoke to 15-year-old girls who are there on their own, who get no support from anybody, not from the Greek state, not from anybody, who are left out on the streets, and people who come up, and children who come up to me and they would say, "Can you help me? Can you help me get out of here?" And their children, they don't know where their next meal comes from. I want nothing more than to put them into my car and drive them somewhere, take them somewhere where they're safe. If I do that, I commit a crime. If I try to protect these children from being attacked on the streets, I commit the crime of human trafficking. And that in itself...
They've a label for it now, which is a terrible label. But they're giving you that. It's falling.
I'm German. In a way, I feel like a coward. I mean, I come back with all this footage. I try to make a film and make a difference that way. But if I was less of a coward, I would just try and help those people get to safety. I'm German. And in Germany, when the wall was up, we had a different term. And that term was Fluchthilfe, aiding an escape. That term was used for people smugglers who help people get from the GDR to the West. But essentially, they were doing exactly the same thing. They were taking money in order to help people cross a border illegally. And maybe at this point, we need a lot more people who are willing to aid escapes, because people aren't safe in the places that they leave in the first place. Then they come to Europe, and the people we spoke to, none of them wanted to come to Greece. They were traveling through Turkey from wherever they came from originally, went and tried to transit Greece. They were on their way to other European countries, and it's European legislations which traps them in Greece and which force Greece to control the borders. Europe threatened to kick Greece out of Schengen because so many of those undocumented migrants were coming through Greece into other European countries. At the same time, since 2011, the European Court of Human Rights has already decided that refugees and immigrants' rights are breached in Greece. And that predates, but that predates the high increase of the racist attacks. That was due to the living conditions, the detention conditions, and the failing asylum system, the dysfunctional asylum system in Greece. So those are all reasons having to do with the Greek government.
Okay, listen, no cowardice I see. No cowardice I see. I wish you well, Kate. Go well. Take care. Go well, David.
Thanks for having us.
Namaste to the both of you. Go well and be successful and be safe and keep doing the things you're doing. Thank you for coming in. Thank you. Thank you.